All right, so I thought I'd kind of continue on the theme of what we had a couple weeks ago when I showed you the picture of the raising of the flag at Iwo Jima. I've got this picture in my office as well. How many of you guys have ever seen the Band of Brothers series? Have you seen it? Great series on HBO. If you haven't, go rent the series, watch it. It's a great series. Band of Brothers is great. It's 10-part series. Then the Pacific afterwards, 10-part series. I read all three of the books about the three men that are featured in that series. It's a great series. I like the Pacific because my granddad, fought against the Japanese, but I'm fascinated with this because my great-granddad fought against the Germans. You're probably familiar then, many of you guys, with the Band of Brothers guys. This is the autographs of most of those guys. I bought this about 10 years ago. Most of these guys have passed away now. Richard Winters is the main kind of guy that was kind of the hero of those guys. But I won't tell you what happens to these guys because if you haven't seen it, I want you to see the series. But many of these guys, I mean, you may remember their names: Buck Compton, Wild Bill Garnier, Ed Joint, Ed Stroll. Some of these guys were emotionally had a hard time. Some of them had to go to hospitals even before the war was over because they couldn't deal with all the killing. Some of these guys, two of these guys, I won't tell you who, had their legs blown off by the Germans with artillery rounds. So it's amazing that these guys went on to have somewhat normal lives. But tonight, guys, I'm going to talk to you about women, and I'm going to talk to you about hopefully helping you think through decisions on having a good marriage one day. I told you this 2 weeks ago, and I'm just being honest with you guys. And before I really get into this, let me ask you a question. Who really cares about you outside these walls? Outside the KA walls, I mean, who really cares about you? Your parents care about you. Maybe you've got a brother and sister that cares about you, maybe some grandparents. But dude, other than that, guys, there's nobody that really cares about you. But the advisors care about you. The officers in this fraternity care about you. Your pledge trainer. These guys have sacrificed hundreds of hours to invest in you guys. I care about you. I told you, I've turned down 5 different churches over the years because I want to help you guys. The guys that are my age in their mid-40s, they're having midlife crises. They're usually on their second or third marriage. They're really regretting their past, definitely their past in college. I don't want you guys to be like that. I want to bump into you guys one day and you say, man, Isaac, I listened to what you said. I applied some of that to my life. Here's my wife, here's my kids, and I get to meet your wife and kids one day. But guys, they don't make movies about guys like me. I've been married 22 years. I'm about to celebrate my 23rd anniversary with my wife this next month. I was sitting around a table this summer with the crew director at Auburn, who's been married 30 years, the crew director at Alabama that's been married 17 years, and then I've been married 22 years. And Bill, the guy at Auburn, who's been married 30 years, he said, Isaac, he said, nobody talks about us. Nobody makes movies about the guys who choose to live with one woman and invest in that woman and serve that woman and serve our children and be good fathers and be good husbands. Because that doesn't make money in Hollywood. The movies that make money are those guys who cheat on everybody, they live like hell, they act like hell. But guys, the movies don't tell you that their lives are a living hell. The movies don't tell you that down the road, they're not getting sex, and if they do get sex, they're not getting much. And they're living with women who don't trust them or don't respect them. And I know I've shared some of that with you guys. I want you to give your life to a woman one day, whether it's sooner or later, and that woman, you get to enjoy her for the rest of your life. Bill said, he said, men, I have the best sex with the best woman in my life, and I've been enjoying it for 30 years. I couldn't imagine it being any better. And I told him, I was like, Bill, me too. I'm right there with you, man. And the other guy had been married 17 years. He was like, man, I love my wife. I love marriage. I want you guys to have that. But it doesn't come easy. What we're going to do is we're going to look at some wisdom of one of the wisest men who ever lived. In 1 Kings chapter 3 in the Old Testament of the Bible, 1 Kings chapter 1 and 2, David, who is the king over Israel, dies. And when he dies, his son Solomon takes his place. And in 1 Kings chapter 3, he has a dream one night. And in his dream, God comes to him and he says, Solomon, because your dad was such a good king and he was a righteous man and he did overall what I asked him, I'm going to give you whatever you want. I mean, if there was ever a movie that this was a genie asking you for your wish, whatever you wanted, God said to Solomon, I'll give you whatever you want. And Solomon said, God, because we have such a huge nation with so many people, and my father was such a good king, and we've had so much rest. I don't know how to govern these people, and I need wisdom. Can you give me wisdom? And the Bible says that God said to Solomon, because you didn't ask for beautiful wives, or you didn't ask for money or wealth or fame, I'm going to give you wisdom. I'm going to make you the wisest man that ever lived, but I'm going to give you those other things as well. Well, Solomon goes on down the road to have children, and he writes the book of Proverbs as wisdom to his sons. So I thought, if I'm going to talk to you guys about being a dad, a husband, a father, why not go to one of the wisest men who ever lived? So if you'll open up with me to Proverbs chapter 7, we're going to compare and contrast the woman of chapter 7 to the woman of chapter 31. Okay? I'd let one of you guys read, but I want the mic to pick up as I'm reading here. So let's go to Proverbs chapter 7, verse 1. Solomon says, my son, keep my words and store up my commands within you. Keep my commands and you will live. Guard my teachings as the apple of your eye. Bind them around your fingers. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Say to wisdom, you are my sister, and to insight, you are my relative. They will keep you from the adulterous woman, from the wayward woman who has seductive words. Now, he begins to describe something that I think probably he really saw. Okay, he's about to tell us about an episode of something he saw, and I'm going to read it to you, and then I want you to hear some of y'all's feedback about this woman. Because y'all, these women are a dime a dozen. The girl I'm about to describe you, she's a dime a dozen. You can have her anytime. All you got to do is go to the bars this weekend. These girls are easy. They're desperate. They're insecure. You're sharp fraternity guys. They'll give themselves to you. They'll give themselves completely to you. And these guys, this is no challenge to have this type of woman. Well, let's read about it here in verse 6. Solomon says, at the window of my house I looked down through the lattice. I saw among the simple, I noticed among the young men a youth who lacked no sense. In other words, a young man who was an idiot. He was going down the street near her corner, walking along in the direction of her house. At twilight, as the day was fading, as the dark of night set in, then out came this woman to meet him, dressed like a prostitute, and was crafty and intent. She is unruly and defiant. Her feet never stay at home. Now in the street, now in the squares, at every corner she lurks. It's almost like Solomon saying she's really everywhere. She's all around us. She took hold of him and she kissed him, and with a brazen face she said, today I have fulfilled my vows, and I have food from my fellowship offering at my home. So I've come out to meet you, and I've looked for you, and I've found you. I've covered my bed with colored linens from Egypt. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloe, and cinnamon. Come, let us drink deeply of our love till morning. Let's enjoy ourselves with love, because my husband's not at home. He's gone away on a long journey. He took his purse filled with money, and he will not be home till the next full moon. And with persuasive words she leads him astray. She seduces him with her smooth talk. All at once, though, he follows her, like an ox going to the slaughter, like a deer stepping into a noose, till an arrow pierces his liver, like a bird darting into a snare, little knowing that it will cost him his life. Now then, my sons, listen to me. Pay attention to what I say. Do not let your heart turn to her ways, or stray into her paths. Many are the victims she has brought down. Her slain are like a mighty throng, or a mighty group, or a mighty heap. Her house is the highway to the grave, leading down to the chambers of death. All right, first of all, where is Solomon when he writes this? When he sees what happens, where do you think he is? Okay, maybe his house, the palace. What does he see? He looks through his window, right? The lattice of his window, what does he see? Do what now? A man walking down the street? What about the woman? What does he say about the woman? Yeah, she comes out after him. She's seductive. Now, why does she say, I've paid my vows? What she's done is she's gone and slept with somebody the day or two before, and she's gone and done what they did back then and offer up a sin offering, so she has an animal sacrifice left over, so she thinks because I did my animal sacrifice now, I'm good to go, I can start all over again. And then what does she say about her husband? Yeah, he's gone on a long journey. He's got a lot of money. He's not going to be back till the next moon, maybe a month. And it says, with many seductive words, she entices him. And then look at this. I think this is really interesting. Oh, just lost my place. It says here, all at once he follows her, like an ox going to the slaughter, like a deer stepping into a noose, or an arrow pierces his liver. My wife was pre-med at Auburn, and I asked her, what's so dangerous about your liver being pierced? Because Solomon's dad, David, was a great soldier, a great fighter, so they knew probably where your liver was and where to pierce it with the sword. And my wife says, when you pierce the liver, it poisons the whole body. So Solomon must be saying here then, if you mess with this type of woman, yeah, you might get a venereal disease. I heard one time there's over 70-something venereal diseases that are out there. But he says here, man, it's going to cost you your life. It says it's going to take you down to the chambers of death. And it says many of men have been her victims. And guys, I don't want you to end up with this type of woman. But the girl you're dating now, the type of girl you're dating right now, if you could write out the type of girl you're dating right now, that's going to end up being the type of girl you marry. And I don't want to bump into you one day and you say, man, Isaac, man, I should have listened to you. Man, I'm on my second marriage. Or my wife and I just got divorced and, man, I never see my kids. Somebody else is raising my kids. Guys, those stories are a dime a dozen in this community. Like I told you, my neighborhood is full of former white fraternity guys, upper middle class guys that are divorced and remarried their second and third time. Guys, I don't want anybody raising my kid. I want to raise my kids. I want to love my wife till I die. So then how do I find that type of woman? Let's flip over to Proverbs chapter 31. I don't know if you've ever heard the difference between a wise man and a smart man. A smart man learns from his own mistakes, but a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. Guys, my fear is that most of you, not just 55% of you, which studies say will end in divorce and misery, but maybe 65 to 70% of you, because I've been in the Greek system for so long. I don't know why fraternity guys cannot keep their marriages together. I don't know if it's because we think we're big and bad, or we're shallow to some degree, and we just meet a girl and she's beautiful, so we just marry her without really thinking about what we're getting into. Maybe we're not cautious. Maybe we don't get the advice of our friends. Maybe we just do it because it's kind of the southern thing to do. We just meet a girl, she's beautiful, we'll just get married. But guys, I want to challenge you to take it slow. Be careful, get the advice of friends, and pray to meet a girl like this. All right, let's look at this girl right here. Chapter 31, verse 10. Solomon says to his sons as he's writing this, a wife of noble character who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. You see, when I'm in a meeting like this talking to you guys, I don't worry about what my wife's doing right now. I don't worry that my wife's off talking to another man. I trust my wife because she's earned that trust with me over the years. I respect her. But what happens, guys, when you go from woman to woman to woman, the girl you slowly start trying to end up with, she'll find out through other men or through you that you've spent a lot of time with multiple women. And my question is, will she really ever trust you? Trust is something that can be lost in a very quick hurry. And I want you guys to earn the trust of a woman. I heard recently that a study was done, and I want to find out more about this study so I can really quote the sources. But the study showed that men that go from woman to woman to woman, we all as men have kind of this chemical in our brain that is triggered that causes us to really cherish a wife, to provide for a wife, to love our wives. But men, they showed in this study, that go from woman to woman to woman and are predators of women and conquering women. I may have told you a couple weeks ago, it's okay as men to conquer in athletics, conquer in business, but the one person we're not called to conquer is our wife. But they've shown that the men who go from woman to woman to woman, they begin to suppress that chemical, and it begins to not produce in their brain, so then they therefore begin to not love and cherish the women that they're with. And I totally agree with that. I don't even have to see the study to see it in my life with my friends around me. So I would say, if I was your dad, my advice would be try to date less girls and set high standards to find the right girl. And when you find the right girl, it may not be the right timing. It may not happen right now. You may meet this girl and you're like, man, she's the right type of girl I want to marry, but for some reason it's not working out. Maybe you're not ready, or maybe she's not ready. But don't lower your standards. Keep your standards high and wait on the right girl. I think I told you guys the other day, my sister graduated from college, went to Honduras, and was a missionary in Tegucigalpa working with orphan kids. And to me, I think that'd be the worst case scenario of finding a spouse. And yet another man, a very godly, moral man, volunteered his time, flew down there, they met, and I did their wedding. Another girl from Ole Miss, she was a Delta Gamma here. She graduated from Ole Miss, felt called to be a missionary over in Italy. Her parents were scared to death because they're from New Albany, Mississippi. They were afraid she was going to marry a mafia guy. She goes to Italy. It turns out there was a Sigma Chi who was so sharp, he was a president of his fraternity at Florida State, wanted to be governor of the state of Florida, but ended up feeling called to be a missionary, went to Italy. They met in Italy, and I did their wedding. Now Jim lives here in Oxford. He's one of my pastors. My point being is, don't feel like you got to settle now. If you become a sophomore, a junior, a senior, and maybe it's not working out with a girl, just wait. For me, I graduated from Arkansas, went to Auburn, and when I started actually living out these principles that I'm talking to you about, I felt like that's when God was like, okay, Isaac, now you're ready. You're ready for the right type of girl, and he introduced me to my wife, my now wife. All right, well, let's continue on. Let's look at some qualities of this woman then, this woman who's the Proverbs 31 woman. It says, she selects wood and flax. She works with eager hands. She is like the merchant ships, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still night, and she provides food for her family and portions for her female servants. She considers a field and she buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard, and she sets about her work vigorously. What are a couple just principles about this woman that stick out that I just read? What are just a couple words that stick out about this type of woman? She's hardworking. She's providing for her kids, yeah. She invests money. You see, she considers a field and she buys it. She's wise with her money. Let's move on. It says, her arms are strong for the task. She sees that her trading is profitable and her lamp does not go out at night. Look at verse 20. She opens her arms to the poor and she extends her hands to the needy. When it snows, she has no fear for her household. Look at verse 23. Her husband is respected in the city gates, where he takes his seat amongst the elders of the land. She makes linen garments, and she sells them and supplies the merchants with sashes. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. Why does she laugh at the days to come? Because she has no fear, because she's taking care of her household. And faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. She's not lazy. Her children arise and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. He says, many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful, beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. Honor her with all your hands have done, and let her works bring you praise in the city gates. All right, just 2 or 3 words that stick out about this woman right here. What are a few other qualities about this woman? Do what? She's respected. Respected by who? Her kids? Her husband? She's faithful. She gives faithful instruction. She's wise. Another word maybe that sticks out?
Puts God first.
Okay, puts God first. And then what does the husband say? Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. And then the verse, I think, that sums up almost this whole book, definitely this chapter. Charm is deceptive, and beauty is fleeting, but the woman who fears the Lord shall be praised. Look for a woman who loves God more than you. A woman who loves God more than you will respect you, and she'll trust you. Guys, remember I told you the other day that respect is one of your top needs. Look for a girl that's going to respect you. My desire for you as men, guys, is that when you get in your 30s and 40s, you won't look back at your time at Ole Miss with regret and shame, Because you see, if you make bad decisions now, your mind is like a computer and you will remember everything you do. And I don't want you to be in the bed with your wife one day, having sex with your wife, and having visions of the women that you slept with back in college. Because see, that's what's going to happen. Your mind is an amazing computer, and you'll never look back. Let me say this, you will never look back when you're my age and say, hey, I wish I'd hooked up with girls more. Man, I wish I'd had more sex. Because if you have a good marriage and you're trying to be a good husband and a good father, you will always look back and say, man, I wish I'd have kept girls more pure. I wish I'd have done less with that stuff. I wish I would have stayed away from porn because that stuff has corrupted me, and I've had to work through those things so that I can really enjoy my wife. So I'm telling you this as somebody who cares about you guys. I want you to have a good marriage. I want you to, when you're with your wife, only think about your wife. But when you've had multiple of women in your past, you're going to take all those women to bed with you because they're going to fog your mind when you're with your wife. And I don't want you to go through that. They say when you're in your 40s also, you become very remorseful for your past. So the more I can help you and push you and slap you around and make you think about making good decisions and wise decisions and really living like what we call you to do as a KA, I want you to look back and go, man, I'm so glad that guy said this. I'm so glad he pushed me in that direction because now I really look back and I have few regrets. I want you guys to be that guy. You know, guys, in closing, you know, I don't get paid to be here. I'm here because I care about you guys. And I want to make myself available to you. If there's any way I can ever talk with you, help you, give you advice, especially in the area of women, that's going to be one of the most important decisions you will ever make is who you're going to spend the rest of your life with. Hey, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening to me tonight, okay?